Hi, today I've made this wreath card for Christmas. I thought I'd show you how to make it. It was easy, but I am going to show you how to make my own wreath builder template. So you'll need to make the template first. I've used a square die, which is a 5.5 inch square. So just using cardstock. I've used two and glued them together to make a sturdier template, but you certainly can use just one piece of card to do it, which I have done in the past. So just cutting the square out in its usual orientation first, then changing the orientation and cutting out again to make this template. So the inner that comes out you can use for your project, and like me, when you've used it you just cut another piece to fit in. So I'm just using random stamps that I've got in my collection from various stamp sets, and you always put your piece of card in the square orientation first, so that you know that all your stamps are going to come out the same all the way round. So I'm using the VersaFine Clay in Shady Lane for my first stamp. So moving that piece of card, and I'm going anti-clockwise. And you'll find that that is so easy to make an even wreath. And of course, when you're using a stamp platform, if your image doesn't stamp out correctly the first time, if you've missed a bit, you can go back in again. But using it in this instance, it's not a problem because you add in layers all the time to make a wreath. I do realise that not everyone is going to have the same stamp platform I'm using. This is a Stamp Perfect and it's an 8x8 stamping platform. But you can always make your wreaths a little bit smaller so that it will go into the size of platform you've got. So working my way around and always ending up with that square orientation ready for the next layer that I'm going to put on. So it's going to be a small pine cone stamp. Then just deciding where I want to start it, because obviously it's going to be the same all the way around. So just having a little look of where I think would be my best position. So I'm using the VersaFine again in the ink called Pine Cone. It is quite a strong brown colour though. So again, just keep going round. The base card that I'm making is 7 by 7. So obviously this size will be perfect for it. But if you wanted to make a base card that's smaller than this, it should look great with the smaller wreath maker template. So all you have to do is to do a smaller size square to start with. And all I've done, as you can see on my stamping platform, I've just taped it down with some low tack tape. I'm just changing my mind what stamp I'm going to use. I'm going to go with the holly stamp. And the ideal thing of using old stamps for your wreath, you can have a look in your stash. Have a look at all those ones that you had free in a magazine or you've had for ages and you forget about, because I certainly do. It's not very often I do use these colour cloud blending inks either, so it was good to give this an airing. The one that I am using is called Sheet Moss. It is quite a lighter colour, which I wanted as a contrast to, because the Shady Lane is quite dark really, and these are new ink pads, so they're really juicy. And because I'm using the colour cloud, I've pulled out my finger daubers as well. And just keep going round in that same orientation. And in no time at all, your next part of it's done. And I'm mindful to clean my stamps off after I've used them as well, because it's so warm here in the UK. I've got sweaty palms as it is. I don't want any smudges anywhere if I can help it. So this is a wreath stamp I've pulled out. And I'm going to use the Tip Top Taupe with this one. I'm trying to keep all my colours quite neutral. Of course, you can use any colours you like. You can do coloured wreaths, pinks and purples and golds and oranges. I'm cleaning that stamp off a little bit because I'd got some on the frame of the stamp platform. I'm quite mindful of getting any stray bits on it. Now I want to come back to the pine cone to do a ring on the inside of the wreath, but offset from the top ones. So using the same ink again, the VersaFine Clear Pine Cone. And that's done. So I've got the sentiment as well to put in the centre. And I've cut the bow from this wreath die and just snipped the bow from it. But I'm not placing it down at the minute. I just want to centralise it where I'm going to hang it in the final stage, just so that I can get my sentiment lined with it. The ink I'm using for this one is called Soft Suede. Now I've got an Inktense pencil in tan, and I'm just going to lay a bit of colour down on the pine cones, not all over, because I want it to still have some highlights, but just a different tone to those pine cones to make them look more realistic. So with a little water on my brush, I'm just rubbing it on the back of my hand to take the excess off. I just want it to be damp and not wet. And since I haven't got any kitchen towel to hand, that's why I've done that. It's not that it's a new technique. And also, because I've used the Stampin' Up stamp set, ink pad, that will blend colour as well, whereas the VersaFine Clay is colour fast. Now at this point, my watch seems to have wanted to zoom you out a bit. So you can see my desk is as untidy as yours is while we're crafting. The pen I've got is a metallic gold pen. It's by Do Crafts Paper Mania. And I'm just going to get my steel rule and do a line as a border around all four sides. So now I've got some white Posca pen, the 5mm, and I just want to dot some Posca around the inner of the wreath. So I'm just leaving that to dry a little bit, and I'm going to do my base card. So mine's 7x7, which I've made myself, and I am going to have it in my usual 10-fold orientation. I'm going to do a little bit of stencil work on the top left and bottom right, and it's called Pods. It's a seed pod stencil by Lavinia. So just getting that stencil to the place where I'd like to start it. I only want to do the corner and a little way on the side. Now I've picked up the ice spruce oxide, and after testing it, I thought it was a bit too dark for this project. So I am glad I tested it first. Always test the ink pad. So after changing my mind on that, it's just deciding what colour I'm going to go with. And yes, I'm going to go with the one that's in front of me, of course I am. So doing a test on that again. And I'm just going to lay light brushes with that stencil. And just testing it, and that's exactly where I want it to be. So now placing it down on that right hand corner, I'm trying to get you a little bit more of a focus on there so you can see. So I've decided to put this up onto some foam tape. The one I've got is from Sticks to Anything. It's a massive, and I really mean a massive roll, but it is nice tape. So just putting that tape on all the way around. and taking off the backing. So making sure you've got yours how you want it to open. Pop the topper down. Now I am going to use some Nuvo drops, but not before I've done my base, because I don't want to squash those drops. So I've cut a piece of card that's 7 by 4, scored at 1/2, 2 and 3.5. So fold and burnish the score lines. Popping my glue down on both the edges. Now with the front side, pop the folded edge towards the front. I'm being mindful of how much you can see because it's a big card, so I did struggle there a little bit where normally I don't. So just get those edges put in and then give it a little press. So then you can fold the rest up and bring that back edge of the card up, and that'll fall into place. So burnish it on both sides. I have noticed I've got a little bit of a glue mark on the back. It's so hot here, and I think I picked some up with the moisture on my fingers. So I've used a glue eraser there, and that's took it all off. Also, I've noticed a tiny smudge on that front panel, and I'm just rubbing that off with my sand eraser. So now it's time for these white Nuvo drops. This one is the crystal drops, and it's just called Simply White. Now I'm popping them down in clusters of 3, just randomly, not in the same orientation. And I know that I have already put white Posca on, but with these Nuvo drops, I have noticed that with the white ones especially, if you put it down onto some ink, your stamped image, if it's not like VersaFine Clear and just a normal dye ink, then it will take on the colour. So I'm putting this white down knowing full well that it will take on some of the colour that it's going on to. So in this case, when it's dried, it will bring out that taupe colour. Not on everyone, but it will do it as in randomly wherever it is placed. So in between the white of the Posca dots and these Nuvo drops, it gives you a beautiful effect. So looking at the difference of the one I made earlier, you can see where the Nouveau drops have taken on that taupe colour. So that's my finished card. I hope you've liked it. If you'd like to like and subscribe, that'd be so lovely. If I'm doing something right for you, just please give me a thumbs up. So that's my stability base as always, and then I'll put my personal message on the back. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.